Hey, sexy listeners, it's that podcast girl cdub, and this is a podcast about house music. Before we get into it, I want to say something. If you've been listening from Chicago, from London, from Berlin, from Sydney, from wherever this show finds you, I want to hear from you. Email me at thatpodcastgirlcdub@gmail.com. If you have a memory about your first time hearing house on a proper system, if you were there in a field somewhere in the 90s, in a basement, a warehouse, a club, or just in your bedroom with headphones on, send it to me. Send me your stories. Send me your details. I read everything and I carry them with me. Today's show is sponsored by Cindy Wang at Douglas Elliman Garden City. If you've ever stood in front of a speaker and felt your ribcage hum before your brain could form a thought, this one is for you. Tonight I want to talk about the mechanics, the part of house music that doesn't always get explained. Not the romance, not the mythology. The reason your body reacts before you even decide to move. Because house music didn't just spread, it scaled, it expanded, it filled warehouses, then parks, and then fields, and that expansion wasn't accidental, it was engineered. If you listen closely to classic house records, you'll hear that kick drum, not just a thud, a very specific punch. That's often a Roland TR-909. The 909 didn't just sound good. It cut through air. It had a tight mid-range knock that traveled across a room full of bodies absorbing low frequencies. It hit somewhere around 60 to 100 hertz with a tiny click layered on top. So even if you were far from the speakers, you still felt its definition. Before that, there was the 808. The Roland TR-808 kick is rounder, deeper, more like a wave than a punch. It blooms underneath you. In a small room, that sub-bass wraps around your legs and lives in your chest. So it wasn't really a war between 808 and 909. It was context. The 808 feels like water. The 909 feels like muscle. And when house music started moving into larger spaces, that muscle mattered. Outdoor air absorbs sub-bass. Open space eats it. So producers leaned into the 909 when they wanted drive, when they wanted thousands of bodies to lock into the same pulse. Around 122 to 126 beats per minute, something subtle happens in the human body. At about 124 BPM, breathing settles. Your heart rate nudges upward, but not into panic. It's fast enough to energize, slow enough to sustain. You don't feel rushed. You feel carried. Your nervous system recognizes it before your thoughts do. That steady 4-on-the-floor kick, landing evenly every beat, creates predictability. And the brain loves predictable rhythm. It reduces cognitive load. It frees you to move. Layer in hi-hats with a little swing, not perfectly on the grid, just slightly syncopated, ahead or behind. And that micro-timing keeps the brain engaged. It feels human even when it's coming from a drum machine. Machines used by humans. That's the heartbeat of it. And then there's vinyl. Before USB sticks and laptops and cloud folders, DJs traveled with crates. 30, 40, sometimes 80 pounds of records. When you press music into vinyl, you are physically cutting grooves into lacquer. Low frequencies take up more space on a record. Push too much sub-bass too loudly, and the needle can literally jump the groove. So mastering engineers shape the low end carefully, and that shaping adds subtle harmonic distortion. In small amounts, distortion creates warmth. It adds overtones. It adds texture. It makes a kick drum feel thicker than the pure digital file ever could. Now imagine that record spinning in a club, the stylus vibrating inside the groove, the slight friction, the microscopic inconsistencies in the pressing, the dust, the wear from previous plays. You might hear a faint crackle before the beat lands, and that crackle becomes part of the anticipation. Digital is clean. Vinyl breathes, and that breath is physics. No two copies age the same way. A record played in Berlin might sound slightly different from the same pressing played in London 6 months later. Analog mixers added their own gentle saturation when pushed. When a DJ rode the levels just into the red, the sound thickened. Imperfection layered on imperfection, and the brain responds to that. Perfect grids can feel sterile. Slight irregularity signals presence. Now think about what it meant to move this music across borders. In the early 90s, DJs weren't emailing files. They were flying with crates. Customs officers opening luggage filled with black discs. Artists landing in unfamiliar cities with their sound physically in their hands. That's how it traveled, from Chicago basements to New York lofts, from there to London warehouses, from London to Ibiza terraces, from Ibiza to open fields in Germany. As festivals grew, the technology scaled with them. Larger sound systems, dedicated subwoofer stacks, booth monitors so DJs could hear the mix while thousands roared behind them. EQ filters that allowed slow sweeps, gradually removing low frequencies so the crowd leaned forward together, waiting for the bass to return. When that low end comes back after being filtered out, the body floods with relief. Dopamine, release, a communal exhale. Different DJs develop different signatures within that same architecture. Frankie Knuckles understood space. He would let a groove settle and then blend so gently you didn't realize you had crossed into another record. Jeff Mills felt sharper, more disciplined, more relentless, his 909 kicks landing with precision. Masters at work layered percussion with warmth and swing, Latin grooves that felt almost conversational. Carl Cox knew how to stretch tension across a massive outdoor system and release it at exactly the right moment. The machines were often the same. The BPM range stayed narrow. The vinyl medium imposed the same physical limitations on everyone. But interpretation was everything. Signature lived in the details. That's what allowed house music to expand into festivals and fields without losing itself. It wasn't just amplification. It was translation. The same core structure scaled because different DJs inhabited it in their own way. And maybe that's why it still feels alive now. Not because it was louder or bigger, but because it was intentional, pressed into wax, hauled in crates, filtered through analog circuits, interpreted by hands that believed in it deeply enough to carry it across oceans. If you've ever felt your chest tighten just before the bass returns, you've already experienced that architecture. This season 3 feels deeper to me, with the same love for the culture and that same curiosity, just steadier and looking more into the details. If this episode sparks something in you, write me an email at ThatPodcastGirl cdub@gmail.com. Thank you for being here with me. Until next time, keep the beats alive.